I am the void. I am the night. I am the wolf that hunts the child in its crib. I am the darkness that knows no dawn.
Ah, no, stop!
You are the door. You are the gate through which my thunders shall pass.
No, stop!
I am the cold breath of the grave. I am the eater of worlds. I am a podcaster.
Welcome back to another episode of Spawnography Hellspawn. I am one of your hosts, Pierce Lyden, pronouns they, them, here with, as always,
George Marston, pronouns they, them, or she, her. Pierce, I really went for it there.
Yeah, you really did. That was good. We've been at this long enough. It only makes sense that we're getting better. So,
I used to be a voice actor. I mostly did like reading textbooks and stuff, and also some like instructional things. But I did do a video game. It was like an instructional video game where I had to do 5 different French accents, or 3 different French accents.
like different regions, or just different.
I don't
characters?
know if they were good ones, but they were all French and they were all characters, and I had to do voices for all of them. I
Well,
did the voices of like 11 different like cartoon pirates based on real pirates.
that's fun.
Yeah, it was something.
So we have some issues we're doing 3 issues. We don't usually
I have some issues, and we also have some Spawn comics.
Well, we have some issues with these issues.
Yeah,
and
sort of.
I mean, this is definitely some of the Spawn comics of all time.
I have an opinion on them. I certainly have a thesis.
I do too.
Them.
I also
have a thesis on these comics.
You have a thesis?
We'll get into it.
Okay. I have some thoughts.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have a thesis, but I definitely have some thoughts. But before we get into it, how you been? What you been up to?
Just drowning all of my anxieties in buying toys, as I often do. I bought some X-Men toys that I showed you today.
I'm jealous.
Legends.
You have such a great connect, I feel like, for Marvel Legends locally to you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't buy all of them. There's some of them I pre-order. I have 2 ways that I get toys. One of them is I get them cheap at the Ollie's, which is right by my place, and they often put up ones that I really like, and I'll often wait for them to show up there potentially. The other way is that I put them on a pre-order and pay them off over like months and months and months.
Yeah.
And so some of those I do. Some of them
just like you can do a burritos now.
That's right, exactly right. Well, we all have to live somehow. Sometimes I find a couple in the wild that are cool. I got a Cyclops at a GameStop the other day. That was the X Factor Cyclops. Anyway, that's what I have instead of experiences, is toys. So, I've just been doing that, and that's really been mostly it. The new toy news is that they're doing Marvel vs. Capcom 2 figures. It's like all the Bangus style art.
Fuck.
Figures.
Guess I'm gonna get those.
They're doing like Wolverine and Omega Red and Silver Samurai, and it's pretty slick.
Marvel vs. Capcom 2, before I read more comics, made me think that Silver Samurai loomed large as one of the coolest characters ever.
I mean, they love the aesthetic. Like he had got a lot of mileage out of the Capcom games, basically all the way back to the original like X-Men Children of the Atom like fighting game.
Yeah,
still a pretty fun game.
Also, that game and Jim Lee's art made me love Omega Red.
Omega Red looks cool. I know there are some X-Men scholars out there who disagree with that. And I certainly have gone through my Omega Red as an edgelord nerd phase. But I don't know. Omega Red is kind of cool.
He has a mutant
Omega
death
Red
factor.
Looks cool. Yeah, he looks cool.
He needs the carbonadium
Carbonadium.
synthesizer.
Yeah,
Yeah, like you do.
because it's got a death factor, which is the opposite of a healing factor, I guess.
Right. He's cooler than Maverick. I'll say that.
I thought Maverick was sick.
He had a
one
cool
point.
trading card, but he was less cool in the actual comics. Once you read them, you're like, oh,
Yeah, that's
okay.
true. That's true. What about you, Pierce? What's going on in your corner of the kingdom?
I went to a wedding this past weekend. Congratulations, Dan and Alyssa. You're not listening to this.
Congratulations, Dan and Alyssa.
And it was fun. I talked about running a lot. Oh my God, we stayed in this house that looked like it was up in Pine Plains, New York. We stayed in this house that looked like it was like a Victorian mansion that used to be owned by the mafia. And so like one of the rooms had like a safe in it. It looked like a Clue house.
Probably fucking did, dude.
Yeah, like, but it looked like a Clue house. Like it had like weird back rooms and weird staircases.
Yeah, awesome.
It was cool. And they said when they went to go see it the first time, there were all vultures perched around the top of the thing.
Hell yeah!
It was really cool. So we hung out there. We went up on Friday, and then we stayed through Sunday morning. Wedding was on Saturday. But I talked with a lot of people that I don't know about running and also about comic books. Talked a lot about X-Men.
What a surprise that you talk to even strangers about running and comic books.
Yeah. But I got a nice compliment where somebody has, listeners, I'm decently fast. I'm not gonna lie and say that I'm not.
These colors don't run, baby. So you're faster than me.
I mean, out of the last half marathon I did, I came in 407th out of 28,000. So that's like
pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So like I'm not trying to but I'm not gonna be like, no, I'm not that. No, I get it. Like for a hobbyist runner, I'm pretty fast. But it was nice to talk to people who are starting their running journey or starting to do half marathons or marathon. A lot more people got into running during the pandemic. It's like more popular now than it has been.
That's so funny because I feel like I just stopped moving anywhere during the pandemic.
Well, it was because remember, like the rule was that you could go out for like one bit of exercise, and so people couldn't go to their gyms anymore.
We didn't have no fucking rules here, man. Like there was maybe 2 weeks when the gyms were closed, but after that crazy. It was a wild west.
Yeah, so people got into running because they're like, well, it's the one thing I can do. And it allows me to go outside. So it's the one time I can go outside. So now all the races and stuff are like very well attended. Not like, I mean, the New York City Marathon, 60,000 people always do it.
Right.
They're from all over the world. But now all the smaller races are also like people are getting excited about them. So it was just nice. Like I got to talk about running a lot, and I went for a run like while I was there, which was really nice, running upstate. And, but somebody was like, you're not really, you don't make me feel bad when I talk to you about running. And I was like, oh,
that's good.
Thanks. Good. I think everybody should do it. That's an early recommendation. Try going for a run. If you're physically able to do it, it's a great time to listen to podcasts, especially ones that are an hour to an hour and a half long.
That I'm trying not to make even longer by asking you what happened with that pig upstate. Listeners,
I'll tell that one next time.
If you ever run into us at the con,
then I'll tell you. If you run into us in New York or San Diego or something,
we'll tell you all about it.
Yeah, we'll tell you all about what happened. We'll get into it another time. Another
time. Apropos, though, because it was a pig upstate and it's a pig in this story.
That's true.
At least in the third chapter.
This is a story that is 3 parts. It's called Cautionary Tales. They have basically nothing to do with each other but vibes. And we're going to get into kind of, you have a thesis, I have some thoughts about what these kind of issues represent as in terms of a direction for this book. That's kind of where I'm coming at it from. To say that I am starting to understand why people on the internet, generally the Spawn fans that I've spoken to or have interacted with, go like, yeah, read the first 100, check in later, and you'll be fine.
I get it. I kind of get it. But
I get it.
I liked reading these, and we'll talk about why.
I didn't have a bad time, but I didn't have the best time. And I think, and we'll get into the letters also, and I think the letters will kind of help everybody I kind of understand the letter writers in a really specific way this time around. Don't worry, they're not 14 and writing their first letter ever, for the most part, as far as I can tell. You want to just...
Yeah, Pierce, you know what? You know what I want? Is I want you to hit me with those credits, brother.
All right.
We'll get into that in a minute.
So we're starting off with Spawn number 102. Crazy to say.
Right?
We'll never be in double digits ever again.
That's right.
That's not true. Never mind.
At least not for this comic.
Not for this comic. Todd McFarlane Image Comics present Cautionary Tales Part 1, The Speed of Night. Dedication.
My favorite Cinderella album.
In loving memory. Isn't it a Bonnie Raitt song too? In The Speed of the Night?
Is it?
Maybe? I don't know.
I don't know. I was making a joke. That's not a Cinderella
I was saying a real thing.
Oh, okay. Well, this is the problem with this podcast, is that if anyone ever listens to it, they'll never know what the fuck either of us is saying is true.
Dedication in loving memory of Rich Fitzgerald. So I imagine that is somebody related to Terry Fitzgerald. Plot by Brian Holguin and Todd McFarlane. Story by Brian Holguin. Pencils by Angel Medina. Inks by Danny Miki and Victor Olazaba. Lettering by Tom Warzakowski. Colors by Brian Haberlin, Dan Kemp, and Haberlin Studios. Cover by Greg Capullo. I know you're reading from the compendium. So here is
the compendium cover.
Yeah. So, this issue starts out with a very kind of Greg and Todd kind of intro.
I believe this is a direct homage to a previous Greg Capullo intro.
Mm-hmm. With the slow zoom out from a fly's eye. This part works. There's a lot of narration. It's saying this is not a test. This is it, the real thing. Your sad, tired little excuse of a life, beating itself senseless against the wall, closing in on you, collapsing with increasing velocity like a dying star. Funny how quickly it all goes now that you're nearing the finish line. But the shadows move even quicker, leaping from the darkness like vile little tongues. There's no way to outrun them. Maybe at one time there was, but not now. This is your life. Was it everything you'd hoped it would be?
When you turn the page, it says, was it everything you bargained for? And what would you give another chance to get it right? And you see a young woman laying against a wall with a leaking bottle of liquor that is full of bugs.
Yeah. This intro is a very Todd doing the intro to the Spawn animated series.
It's a very Rod, like the Rod Serling version of a Spawn intro. Absolutely.
And that's what a little bit of all three of these issues kind of strike me as, are these sort of, it's called Cautionary Tales for a reason. And they do feel like from the world of Spawn type stories, where we've talked about Spawn and Todd has talked about Spawn being this presence in a story, but not being the focus of it. A vibes character, we've said. These issues really bear that out. And I feel like there's a bit of a push and pull between what they're trying to execute in terms of expanding the world, because we did just kind of blow up the world of Spawn with killing Malebolgia. We haven't seen the Night People in a while. He's kind of ignoring Cog. We killed Angela. All the main characters are kind of off the board right now. Oh, and even Spawn is not really Al Simmons, right? Spawn and Al have kind of separated themselves. There's still Wanda and Terry and Cyan stuff, and Jake and Kate now as well, stuff in the background. He's also gotten away from Granny Blake. We saw it very specifically in 101.
But a lot of threads have gotten resolved. A lot of coins have turned over. And a lot of things that we were counting on before are now out the window because he killed Malebolgia with the help of Angela. And I'll go ahead and lay out my thesis right at the start of us talking about all three of these issues. When I say a thesis, it's very casual, and I think you'll probably agree.
Listener, George just held up a leather-bound volume.
That's right. I'm wheeling in the board now.
Yeah,
with the connections. The PowerPoint I'm about to show Pierce will be available on our website, which is www.spawnography.awesome.forever. That is, if that's a real website, we are gonna own it. Anyway, So here's my thought. This is once again a retread or running it back, let's say, of Spawn Across America.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not the first time we've done this. This
Mm-hmm.
is in fact maybe the third or fourth time,
I want to say
all
third.
told. Yeah, so it's become a tradition after a big milestone issue for there to be like an explanation of the status quo, kind of showing how everything's different, checking in with all the characters, evolving the world in the pages of the comic. And then also there are a few issues where it shows you what Spawn's new deal is. For a while he was going around like killing, like we did the thing where we ran it back before where he was killing pedophiles or whatever again.
Yeah.
And like finding, people doing very mundane evil in their own worlds and punishing them, almost like the Spectre in a way or something.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're laying out again how Spawn is in his world and what his adventures are like. And we're doing it almost through another retread of very similar stories that we've seen before. In this story, Spawn is going to have an interaction with a troubled young woman who gets a lot more than she bargained for after a run-in with Spawn. We've seen that plenty of times. The next one will be a story of
a rich guy who buys
the rich guy who has a certain predilection for, let's say, memorabilia, and we'll get into it from that, which feels ultimately like another iteration in Spawn versus White Supremacists.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally we have Spawn versus the Monster of the Week, which is a callback to a monster we've seen before. And I think it's kind of a Spawn Across America. Spawn, what was the name of the other one? That last arc? God, it had an unofficial name that we called it. I can't remember.
I can
never remember anything. Certainly don't remember reading 103 issues of Spawn or whatever it's been. No, I remember all of it, every minute of it. Anyway, it feels like the next iteration of that, the next season premiere of Spawn, if you will. If what we saw in 100, we talked about it as kind of a season finale or whatever, this feels like the season premiere showing like, okay, well, now we're in a new era. We've ended the old story, we've ended the old concept, and we're kind of getting into something new, which is, as you said, Spawn being more in the background like a lurking horror movie monster. I don't know if that's going to be the status quo for 100 issues going forward or something.
Right.
But it's certainly the vibe they're building on right now. And the other thing that this first issue does is right off the bat, where we pick up here, it brings back Menon. And it's kind of inserting him as Spawn's new devilish nemesis with Malebolgia out of the picture. And like part of the reason this is full of flies is because of Menon and his flies and stuff.
Yeah.
So
the thing that I have a problem with, or I think I struggle with, I think the first issue is the worst of the three of them. And
it kind of relies on a punchline that it doesn't necessarily sell.
Yeah, and it's also because I don't really understand it. Is what the kind of TLDR version of this story, and we'll get more into it over the course of it, but I don't really think there's all that much to. I don't think there's all that much to dig into in this first issue. Unfortunately, I find it a little bit flimsy. Is that Thea, who is this troubled woman who is in this alley, she has a curse. She can kind of predict when people are going to die, and seemingly she is the one that, like, when she says like, "Oh, you're next," like you're gonna die, like something happens, and then
right, she feels like she is marking people for death by having premonitions.
Right, and that's because when she was a little girl, her own mother was killed. And so the idea is also that like Mammon has kind of been manipulating these things. There's a bit where she kind of has like a stigmata going on.
Every time she has a prediction like this, she starts bleeding.
It
comes from her nose, it comes from like her face or her eyes, or like, she has the stigmata at first with her hands in the beginning.
There's like a lot in this issue that doesn't feel like it totally like lines up with each other. And
it's all very vibes based.
I kind of have to put it at Angel Medina's feet. It does feel like a little bit of a misunderstanding on like how to execute exactly what the story is supposed to be, because the story itself is like a little bit vague in terms of like what it's trying to do. And for if I was the artist who signed on to draw the Spawn comic book, this is a whole lot of like not really drawing Spawn.
There are some great spawns in here, though.
There's a couple good ones.
There's some good ones. We see, Thea throughout her life. She becomes addicted to drugs because of the trauma of predicting people's death. Her roommates overdose and die. She basically spirals further and further into addiction, and she has an encounter with Spawn. She runs into Spawn in an alley, and I love this splash of her at Spawn's feet with his cape kind of like unfurling above her, and then him like
really
bursting into fire. What's happening here is that she is running from Spawn from place to place, and she winds up in the hospital. She has this vision of Spawn and Malebolgia, like at her own grave or something. And I guess actually, what is that?
No, that's actually Al's. That's actually Wanda at Al's grave.
Yes, sorry, hold on a second.
She's getting like this.
Let
like,
me take that again.
Yeah.
She has this vision in the hospital, kind of showing her what Spawn is. I see this now. This is Malebolgia in the moment of offering Spawn his like deal, so to speak. And she thinks that Spawn, the agent of vengeance, is coming to get her because of how her visions have in her mind caused other people to die. She thinks he's coming for vengeance. And Memon is certainly fueling this fire. He comes to her in the hospital. He shows her visions of skulls. He says, on bloodstained wings, vengeance flies faster than the speed of night, which I believe is Shakespeare.
Is it?
I don't know.
I don't know. I know that there's a Milton quote before that. Truth like a bastard comes into the world is John Milton, who wrote Paradise Lost.
Yeah, maybe
which
you're right.
That does make sense. On Bloodstained Wings,
he quotes Milton a lot, but
yeah, on Bloodstained Wings, I looked it up. I couldn't find anything, but also Google is terrible now. It does feel like it would be a Metallica lyric.
It actually feels very much like the lyrics of I don't know what it is. On Wings of Blood? I don't know. What it feels like to me is the lyrics to I can't remember the Mask of the Red Death, I think is the name of the song by Thrice. It's a Thrice song that's based on the Mask of the Red Death.
Anyway.
Yep, it's very metal.
Yeah.
And here we are just stumbling over the best podcasts in the world.
So, Memon comes to her in the he's been kind of narrating the whole issue. Like, let's be clear.
The Red Death is the name of the song.
The Red Death. He's been kind of narrating the whole issue as we're kind of seeing these flashbacks and everything that's going on, because she's still in the alley making this potential deal with him, because all of this is happening while he flips a coin. A coin flips, then we get all these kind of flashbacks and this understanding of all this stuff.
He's basically making a deal with her. Take your own life and I'll save you from Spawn. He'll never get you. Because the reason he's trying to get you, as Memon tells her, is you understand the truth. That death comes for everyone. It's not personal. It means nothing. That no one's death has ever meant anything. And if that's true, then the sacrifice that Spawn made, thinking that he was going to come back and see his wife again, means nothing. And he can't stand that. So he's going to kill you because you shatter his belief system.
Right.
And she basically ultimately decides, okay, I'll go with you. You can have me. Mm-hmm. And here's where we get our like Twilight Zone, creepy O. Henry kind of twist, which is that Spawn was trying to protect her from Memon all along. And Memon gloats at her and at Spawn, and he has this panel where he says, one love, Hellspawn, your move, which is of course tennis talk, but when you read it, it just looks like one love, Hellspawn, your move, which is how Hulk Hogan signs his tweets, one love, HH, which when I see HH, I think it's something else, and I think that's intentional. Fuck Hulk Hogan.
Which is relevant to the next issue. We really breezed through that one.
We did. It's because we're covering 3 issues.
I will say this. I don't think that I think So we just talked so much about how good Capullo's acting is, and I don't buy Medina's yet. He
He's
draws the characters
definitely
a little bit off.
adjusting.
Yeah, he draws the characters a little bit off model. I don't think that Miki and Olazaba are able to sort of course correct the pencils into something that looks closer to what we're used to. I do think that they are trying to create like a more unique visual language for Medina. I also think that these pages are just not laid out super well. A lot of vertical panels. I tend to not really love vertical panels in comics. I think that they are tough to read, especially in a book that really needs you to be bouncing around the page.
This story suffers from some storytelling gaps, I think. I also feel like the coloring has taken a bit of a step back from where we were at the end of Capullo's run.
I agree.
It's a little less moody. It's a little more back. There was that sliver of time before we got into that like lead up of 100 and everything, where around 100 the colors were so good, but there was that chunk of time before it where they were kind of not on the same level, and that's kind of how it feels here. They feel a little light-handed, especially for stories this vibes based and this moody.
Yeah. And that will slightly improve over the course of these 3 issues. But you have any last comments on 102? Because I'll move to 103.
I think the twist is fine. I just think the storytelling leading up to it doesn't quite work. It's just kind of choppy storytelling, and we learn a little bit about this character Thea, but usually, honestly, in a story like this, we often get more of the actual character. Here, it feels like it's all just feeding that twist at the end. So.
It also, it feels like we just did this with Mark, right?
Yeah.
It feels like we just did this. I know it's not the same, but it's so similar in terms of like sort of what it's doing that story was more interesting.
It was a more interesting story and it had a more interesting twist.
The thing I don't understand is I don't understand how Spawn doesn't get to her again. He's pretty powerful at this point.
I believe it's that Memon is just a devil and has still an even greater level of power than Spawn.
I guess there's like nothing on the page that is indicating that except that he just doesn't save her. And that is...
Yeah, like I said,
that is forcing a reader to do
some storytelling gaps.
Yeah, that's forcing a reader to make some certain logic jumps that like we're not stupid, obviously. But I think again, this is fitting. I wonder what the outline for this issue was, and then when they got the pages, they were like, "Oh, that's not exactly what we thought, but okay, it's got to kind of fit to it." I don't know.
It doesn't feel like that kind of disconnect. It feels like a disconnect in the plotting and scripting. It just feels like a disconnect across the board.
I'm kind of thinking that maybe though the
art is the connective tissue that's kind of not working.
Well, and I think that the outline may not have been very good. And
that's
then
also possible. I mean, it's a thin story.
Yeah.
So it had to be stretched across 20 pages or whatever. It feels like a 10-page story.
Yeah. That said, we will see Thea again in like 35 issues.
Great.
so
well, I'm honestly glad about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
so
Pierce,
she's
you know
not
what time
completely
it is?
a one-off. What time is it?
It's 1:03 o'clock because that's the issue I need you to hit me with the credits for. That's not good. I'm not going to do that again. Sorry, Spawn Unity. I got Spawn Unity working.
All right. Spawn number 103. Todd McFarlane Image Comics present Cautionary Tales Part 2 Remains, dedicated to Andrew Adamson. I don't know who that is, and I forgot to look it up.
Wow, Pierce, you don't know who Andrew Adamson is? I don't either.
Andrew Adamson, a New Zealand film director who made Shrek 2.
Wow. Hey, you know what?
And at this point, I guess made Shrek 1.
Shout out to my partner, Killian, who is currently in rehearsals because she is playing Fiona in Shrek the Musical in a local production of Shrek the Musical. Hell yeah.
Well,
Shrek.
Great. Did he work? He also worked on Batman and Robin and Batman Forever. Did he work on Spawn? I bet he worked on Spawn. It doesn't seem like he did. Anyway, he worked on Batman and Robin and Batman Forever and
Hell
Toys.
Yeah. Wow.
So anyway,
what a film.
Plot by Brian Holguin and Todd McFarlane. Story by Brian Holguin. Pencils by Angel Medina. Inks by Danny Miki and Victor Olazaba. Lettering by Tom Warzakowski. Colors by Brian Haberlin, Dan Kemp, Haberlin Studios. Cover by Greg Capullo. It's actually a pretty cool cover. It's got this
Yeah, that's pretty
cool,
good.
like, this face in the
Spider-Man
background.
standing in front of a big, like, grotesque on a wall.
Yeah, it's good.
Spider-Man?
Spider-Man?
Sorry, let me retake that. I don't know where my brain went. Spawn standing in front of a grotesque on a wall.
Yeah, it's cool. Anyway, this one's going to open in San Francisco. And we got a man in a suit, a double-breasted suit here, and he's on the phone. And there's
Typical tech bro wearing his suit wrong.
Yep. And
walking with gum on his shoe.
And he's what does his shoe even say? Shoe says Bean Gear.
Great.
Oh, all right.
Maybe that's an LL Bean thing. I don't know.
Maybe. And there's a woman, presumably an unhoused woman, trying to sell him flowers. He does drop a bunch of money. He does drop a bunch of money in her little cup.
Oh, that's nice.
And he doesn't take. It's the only nice thing he does in this issue.
Yeah.
And he doesn't take a flower. And he goes to a place called the War Chest. Booby traps sold here.
And this is kind of like the stereotypical like army supply store from like The Simpsons, or even probably more relevant to this time period,
South Park?
Pulp Fiction, which
is that relevant?
God,
it's 2001.
I cannot even talk right now. Pulp Fiction, which is what is referenced in that Simpsons episode. Anyway, it's kind of a stereotypical like boy, I cannot talk right now. It's kind of a stereotypical army supply store where they also sell memorabilia, war memorabilia and stuff. This guy comes in and he's on the phone trying to buy a new red convertible, but he goes into this store and he asks for some very specific memorabilia. You don't get an idea of what it is yet, but it's this double page spread where he's kind of saying like, he says, I'm looking for something like the last one, special. And the guy running the store, the sketchy guy running the store says, something from the private collection. And he says, I warned you, didn't I? It's like a fever. Once you start, you can't quit. Hang on a second. Let me get the light. And he turns it on, and it's just a room full of Marvel Legends. And once you start, you can't quit. No, it's a room full of Nazi memorabilia, including a huge swastika flag, propaganda posters of Hitler, Nazi uniforms, stolen artifacts, just like a huge treasure trove of awful garbage.
Did you notice Captain America's shield in that one panel?
Where is that one?
In the panel, it says, not a problem. In fact, I just got some new stuff in. Real choice. There's a Captain America shield in the corner.
Yeah, so there is down in the corner. Yes, there is. Sorry, I was distracted by all the Nazi bullshit.
Yeah.
I guess that's what's wrong with America today. You see Nazis everywhere. You don't see America. You're a Nazi America.
Oh, boy.
I'll show myself out. I'll cancel my own subscription to this podcast. He's basically trying to buy something great, something really special. He has like a tea set or something, an SS tea set, some fucking garbage.
And this is a very real thing. I mean, like Lemmy from Motorhead was known to collect like Nazi shit.
That's true.
David Bowie was known to collect Nazi shit and kind of flirt with like Nazi shit. There is this
complicated stories, both.
No, of course,
complicated backstories.
There's definitely like a sort of morbid fascination with the
well, look,
how am I gonna I'll put it this way. Tom of Finland also has like in that art, like it's very like homoerotic.
True.
And it is very attracted to the idea of power as attractive. And there is something like enticing to some people. Now, Tom Finland also was like, don't show any of the shit where I drew Nazi shit. I fucking hate Nazis. This was the thing that I drew and I can't take it back now.
Some people have private shit. in their lives. Now, here's the thing. What I was going to say about like Lemmy and in some ways David Bowie. Lemmy was born during the Blitz in London, like during a bombing. At least that's how the story goes. He was certainly born during the era of the Blitz when London was being destroyed by Nazi pilots. And he grew up fucking hating Nazis and beating the shit out of them.
Yeah.
And he wound up collecting a lot of trophies and Nazi memorabilia, which is very complicated. I don't condone it, and I don't think that's good. And while we are talking about, while there's something like flirtatious about it or whatever, I want to make it very clear that neither of us have any interest in ever collecting or owning any of these things. It's not that. It's that
I do sort of understand a little bit of the what this character's saying, like, oh, once you start, like, you kind of can't stop. Like, it feels dangerous. That's what's like attractive to people.
There are
about
certain eras and cultures
taboo.
where people have gone back to that. Early British punks would wear swastikas sometimes.
Right.
And part of it is being as extremely iconoclastic as possible to their parents who grew up fighting and hating Nazis and being born the children of people who, and I'm not making an excuse. It's just one of those things that, like you said, it's an explanation for how someone gets hooked into this kind of shit. I had a friend who wound up getting into some of this kind of shit, or was trying to, and we're not friends anymore. Let's put it that way. So like, this shit is real and it's out there, and there are a lot of ways people come to it, but this guy is coming to it from the least credible and least like sympathetic way ever possible, which is that he's simply delighted by it, and he's making a lot of excuses to himself. And the other guy's making excuses to him, like, if you don't buy what I've got, someone else will. And what he's got is a lamp that is handcrafted with the skin of
brutal
someone who was murdered in the Holocaust, which is, we should have put a trigger warning on that, Jesus. But you know, trigger warning, we're bad about that because we got hard stomachs. We grew up in the time before you had to have trigger warnings for this woke mind virus.
Well, so you know,
this podcast is really gonna get us a lot of listeners this episode.
Probably. The tags are gonna be crazy.
Yeah.
The guy selling this lamp is explaining that the marking on the lampshade is a tattoo, and that's how we know it's the skin of somebody who was murdered during the Holocaust. And so the guy says that he's not going to buy the car that he's been talking about, and he's just going to buy this instead. And he takes it home and he starts making excuses. What's the big deal? Nothing to be ashamed of. It's not like it's a person or anything. It's just a thing. And he's already
like as he's saying this, he's going into his secret Nazi room.
Yeah. And of course, that's when our favorite ghost shows up, Spawn.
Mm-hmm.
And
now we get. Go ahead.
Oh, so I was going to say, and then Spawn is doing this very specter-y kind of thing, or the shadow kind of thing, like
where he's just leaning in, his hand is reaching out,
and
I will say for Angel Medina, good claws.
Yeah, I think that when he actually gets to draw Spawn, he's like, "Oh, right, this is the job I signed up for. Fuck yeah, like let's do it." And then the rest of this issue, he's like, "Fuck, I just have to draw a fucking concentration camp. That's rough." Because Spawn shows this guy. Bleak. Sean. I'm
the hell Sean.
Spawn shows this guy a vision of where that lampshade came from and shows him the story behind it. And it is basically that, and I guess kind of puts him in the point of view of the Nazi officer who
is responsible
for this woman's death, essentially. And it is this like tragic story of a Nazi officer, and this is a common thing. Nazi officer who becomes infatuated with one of the prisoners in the concentration camp, tries to give her a job like cleaning floors as a way to help her, so she doesn't have to like work in the camps with everybody else. And she hates him, as she should.
Yeah, we're kind of breezing through it way more than we need to be, because there's stuff we should actually talk about with this story. Like, you kind of just went through the entire story and skipped stuff.
All right.
Like,
all right, we'll start at the beginning.
I get why you don't want to go through every page, and I don't
Yeah.
either. But the actual story here is what's important is Spawn puts this guy in the mindset of the officer of the camp or the guard who is expressing to himself throughout the rest of the narration these nightmares he's having, which are basically visions of Spawn. Spawn is literally kind of connecting their minds through time, is the implication.
Yeah.
And the important thing here is this guy is saying stuff to justify all this to himself that is exactly what the guy who is buying the memorabilia, dehumanizing this woman who he's obsessed with, these kind of things, saying the exact same things and telling himself the exact same things. Puts this guy directly in the exact frame of mind to see that he's no different and no better than this SS officer. He gives her a job, or she has a job in this building, cleaning the place, and he comes to her and professes his love, and she rejects him. The next day, she's gone. Now, what's important is the implication is that she was taken by his superior officer and turned into this fucking lamp.
Yeah, and he's lied to and says like, "Oh, I sold her to be somebody's wife or something."
Yeah, he says he sent her as a gift.
Yeah.
And so this guy becomes despondent. Spawn is haunting him throughout his life. He's showing the guy. There's this double page spread where Spawn is like choking the guy out under this wall of corpses and this like huge smokestack. And he's just saying, look. And
So that's a 6 Spawn. My only issue with that Spawn is his weird back muscle. He's got like a...
Oh, yeah, he sure does. He has not been skipping back day. Holy smokes. Very exaggerated. But, you know, kind of dynamic, I guess.
'Twas the time.
So Spawn leaves this guy on the Nazi officer's last day, which is trigger warning here for self-harm.
I mean, whatever. He's a Nazi.
He commits suicide. He kills himself. He's a Nazi. I shouldn't say commit suicide. He dies by suicide. Fuck him. That's what he deserved. And the guy wakes up from this nightmare all alone. And I like where he's saying, "Oh God, forgive me." And Spawn is kind of retreating into the darkness. I love that panel of Spawn.
Yeah.
Complicated issue to talk about, I will say.
You know,
and I get why you
there's
wanted
just-
to breeze over it, but I think that it's important to compare to how we've handled these kind of issues in other times that Spawn has touched on it.
I hear you, and I appreciate you pushing back on me trying to breeze over it. I just like, I don't know, when I get to the panel where it's little kids with their mouth open saying it's snowing people, I'm kind of like...
Well, to be fair to the kids, they think it's snow, and their grandfather, the Nazi officer, laughs and says it's snowing people. And I wasn't even going to bring that part up, but I get why you are made uncomfortable by those things, because they're deeply uncomfortable. I think this is a more effective version of like trying to show empathy to someone than some of the versions of like turning a white man black and having white supremacists kill him.
I agree. I think, though, I don't know.
The issue ends, by the way, with the guy taking the urn and burying it, or not the urn, but the lamp basically, and burying it like an urn, and a rose growing from the spot, which is kind of a nice touch. It ends on a splash of Spawn watching rose petals float away and just saying rest. It's a little kind of like, okay, but at the same time, I think it is a better outcome. And I think it's a more interesting version of we have to magically teach someone empathy than I'm going to make them the victim of this racism. I'm going to show them how they are exactly like the perpetrator of it.
I do think that it is a better version of like Spawn, what is it, 30, 29 or 30, whatever that one was, with the KKK. In the sense that you're right, like Spawn in that story just kind of like leaves things and is like, I fixed it, great. And here he's like, I think I can change this guy's mind by making him see what he's engaging with.
Right.
Which is
he doesn't
better.
wind up killing the guy. The guy presumably has a change of heart. Does he deserve to be killed for buying Nazi memorabilia? I don't think he deserves the best.
Yeah.
But
he seems like an asshole, but I guess like I don't know that I like these like parable-y kind of. I don't know that Spawn is fun when it's doing that. I don't really know that it's earned.
this is not a fun issue. I'm
No,
going to
and
go ahead and agree with you 100%. This is not a fun
I
issue.
also don't know that it's like earned the space to like teach a lesson or whatever. Is the lesson here like
The
Nazis are
lesson
bad?
is,
We should
well,
know
no,
that.
what the lesson is, when you dehumanize the object of the victim of a crime that is already dehumanized, you're no better than the person who was the guy buying and selling the lamp and telling himself that it was fine because it's just an object and it's not a person, and dehumanizing it is exactly the same as how we wound up with how we are currently winding up
True.
with other genocides, not just in the US, but in many places around the world
Yeah.
currently happening. It's the same feeling and it's the same thing. And I think it's something that people actually need to see in a way, because far too often we expect people to empathize with victims, and they absolutely should. But the thing that we don't ask them to do, and that we think is maybe a bridge too far, is to see instead how they are so similar to the people that they think they're not like.
One thing
I just want to finish this point.
Yeah.
One sentence: the average person who I think is totally on board with things like genocide against trans people and immigrants, because make no mistake, expelling them from our country is genocide.
Yeah.
Expelling all non-white people or all immigrant people from our country is a form of genocide. Maybe there's a more technical word that gets more specific, but it is. The average person who endorses that belief does not connect themselves to the thought of a Nazi or a person in Nazi Germany or a person in a country that has done these purges. They can, and they are more than willing to say, I can totally see how bad it would be if I was a victim, but I'm still not going to stop it. We need to also be asking people to reflect on the fact that they are the same as the fucking villains. So I kind of get that as a lesson. Is it effective? Is it earned? Is it timely? It feels more timely now, maybe, than it might have in 2001. What month? Was it before or after?
My Chemical Romance became a band.
Yes.
It was January 2001. That's what I
So
was just checking.
especially at that time, you know, before My Chemical Romance, we didn't have the emotional hardcore of and pop punk blend of the mid
Well,
2000s.
I was just really thinking about what you're saying, and it does feel like we'll get another issue like that, or we potentially could get another issue like this just 12 or so issues away from this one, right?
Right, maybe
That is,
so.
that is
125 maybe.
Yeah, I mean, or maybe we're still waiting for it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know because I haven't read ahead.
We'll get there. But like, yeah, this one's I don't know. I think the problem that I'm having right now is that the Spawn that was doing the last couple times we've done this, I had a clearer idea of who he was.
Right.
And right now, yeah, he had the fight with Granny Blake where he's like, well, nothing matters. God and the devil, God and the devil are the same. Heaven and hell, they're the same. Nothing matters. So is what he's saying there like, well, then I'm just going to do good things because I want to do good things?
Well, I
I'm
think
unclear.
the last we heard was that he's now the one that bad people have to answer to because it actually matters that they're bad.
Well,
it was the last thing we heard. Now, I will agree with you. I think that Spawn is very sketchily drawn in these issues. And I don't mean literally, I mean like as a character, he is very like the depth of him as a character and of his new status quo is very surface level in these issues. That's the one place where I really think they definitely fail. And we'll get into some of this in the final thoughts after this next issue. But I think that part of the problem is they don't actually redefine Spawn. They just do the next version of retelling some of those stories with an eye on how to make them better or how to tell them better or how to have them reflect more the intent of the story.
Well, and I'd argue that they're just taking Spawn more and more out of them as an active participant I know that in this issue he does do something.
We get a little more Spawn here, and we'll see. I again haven't read ahead, so if I sound like an asshole and I'm totally wrong, I get that, but I don't get the sense that we're going to be dealing with just this kind of status quo nonstop forever.
Yeah. Still, I think that the same way that when we were in the lead up to 100, we were just like, oh my God, I just would be rushing out to get the next issue of Spawn. This is what I was saying. There's like there's something deflating about where we are right now compared to where we came from.
It's kind of like X-Files, okay? When X-Files started, the best episodes of it and the ones that really hooked people in were the Monster of the Week episodes. And the ones where we got little glimpses of like what was going on with Mulder's past and like the conspiracy and the so-called myth arc of the X-Files or whatever were cool, but it took a while for that balance to flip, where by the time they were deep in those myth arc episodes, you wanted to see those. You were like, what's coming next with the answers to these questions? I got to get deeper into this. I have to know. So when they'd flip back to a Monster of the Week for an episode or a couple of weeks, you'd start to feel like, okay, but when are we getting back to the story? And it almost feels like a similar effect here, where it's like, okay, well, now we're deeply invested more in the myth arc of Spawn than we are in just the little adventures he's having. How is this changing our relationship to Spawn? How is this changing Spawn's relationship to his world? And, when we talked to Todd, he talked a lot about how he wants the stories to evolve Spawn and he doesn't want Spawn to go backwards. This doesn't feel like going backwards, but it doesn't feel like taking a step forwards. It feels like spending 3 issues kind of spinning in place with Spawn as a character.
Yeah, the thing that
we haven't even talked about the 3rd issue yet, and we're already onto this, but
that's okay.
We'll get to that.
That's okay. Well, because actually the 3rd issue is the one where I'm like, yes, the repercussions of things that have happened in this book.
This is where it starts to feel more back into that milieu, which is why I feel like we're going to see more of that as we go, as we redefine Spawn. It might take longer to get there. It might take longer to get to that redefinition, but hopefully we will. So, Pierce, now that we're all the way into this, please hit me with the credits to Spawn number 104.
Spawn number 104, Todd McFarlane and Image Comics present Cautionary Tales Part 3, A Town Called Malice. Dedicated to Don Murphy, who I didn't look up again.
Oh, Don Murphy was a cartoonist.
Really?
Yeah. I think so.
He's an American film producer.
Oh, never mind. Oh, my mind went to Don Rosen.
Oh, yeah. He produced Natural Born Killers, one of my favorite movies, Real Steel, a movie that asks, what if Wolverine took young Thor under his wing to box robots? Okay. Also Splice, Transformers, Revenge of the Fallen. Oh, he's from Mineola. He went to Chaminade.
Okay.
It's a rival high school of my high school. So, he also did advertising campaigns for Blowout, Under the Rainbow, and Ragtime.
Wow.
And
back in the 80s, 70s even.
So those are 80s movies. 81.
Was Blowout 1981?
81. Great movie.
For some reason, I thought it was 79. Blowout,
it
pretty good.
Feels like it could be.
It's a De Palma.
Oh, right? He also produced From Hell and League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
My shame, and I'm admitting this now because you can see it anytime you ever meet me, is that I do have a huge tattoo of the From Hell movie poster on my forearm. It's hard to tell what it is because it's just like a red splotch with a silhouette.
You could get it fixed to be Spawn.
Okay, I could get it fixed to be Spawn. People are always like, oh my God, is your arm okay? And because it's literally a tattoo of a blood splatter. But I kind of like that movie, directed by the I cannot think of their names.
The Hughes brothers.
The Hughes brothers, thank you.
Albert and Alan Hughes. They also did Menace to Society and Dead Presidents.
Yes, great directors.
And unfortunately, The Book of Eli.
Yeah.
A movie that's not good.
No.
But
anyway.
Hughes brothers directed
this is
Spawn
filmography.
Movie. that's something else.
It is. It's a lot of other things, not this.
Anyway,
And-
the rest of the credits are exactly the same as the other two, except there are additional inks by Sean Parsons. That's it.
So we're in Malice, the town where Spawn fought. Why can I not think of his name now?
Urizen.
Urizen. Thank you.
I
Where
like that we
Spawn
just have
fought
8 ways
Urizen.
to say the same names.
Urizen. It doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Nothing will ever matter again. Here in the town of Malice, people have kind of forgotten what's gone on, but there are a few people who kind of have an inkling of the presence of Urizen, specifically these 3 young boys. One older brother and 2 young twins. The what are their names? The Miller boys.
The Miller
And
boys.
there are 3 young redhead kids. It's always 3 little redhead asshole bullies who are picking on this poor kid. They keep calling him Piggy Boy and stuff, and they're reading like horror stories to each other. And what happens is,
well, so wait, hold on. Now you're going too fast here.
okay,
So
fair.
in this town called Malice, like they don't really remember what happened.
Right.
And as these 3 kids are walking away, we get this incredible, I will say, Angel Medina figured it out. Maybe the other 2 issues are a little rushed or something, but Medina looks great here. I think
the art looks good.
I think the acting's way better across the board. I think the panel layouts make more sense. And
I do think some of the shot choices are a little tighter than they need to be. They get a little jumbled in places.
that was my problem with those very vertical panels in
That's
the
where
first
I think
issue.
it happens in some of these.
But, you know, I do think that their overall choices that are made are good. We get this great panel as the Millers are walking off into the sunset where it says, anyone with eyes can see it. The Miller boys have changed. And behind them, their shadows make Urizen.
Yeah,
And it's
that is
really
a great page.
cool. It's
also
really cool
Halloween
page.
time in Malice, and I love all
Yeah.
the little Halloween touches everywhere. It gives everything a nice spawny kind of vibe with the bats and stuff.
Also, I'll say this issue looks great in newsprint. I have the
Nice.
newsstand edition, and it just it's the only thing that comics should be printed on. I'm just gonna say it. Glossy paper, out of here. Get out of here. But now that they are seemingly sort of possessed by Urizen or whatever, they are.
Yeah, they're picking on this one kid because the older brother, Preston Miller, has been, in his words, learned secrets that no one else knows, and he's taught them to his younger brothers. And here's how Preston Miller learned those things that have led him to terrorize this one kid. They've picked this one kid that have decided he's the Piggy Boy, and they are just terrorizing him. What happened to Preston is, at the stones where the corpses of the sacrifices to Urizen, to summon Urizen, were made, there are now stone pillars jutting out of the earth. Preston and his brothers go up there to prove that they're not afraid of anything. People in the town don't remember what happened, but they're afraid of this spot. And as he's jumping around, he kind of, in his bare feet, he leaps off a stone onto the grass and gets a sliver in his foot. And as it turns out, it's like a sliver of Urizen's armor or chain or something. And when it enters his foot, he has this vision. Now we've got this double page spread of him having a vision. I like about 75% of it. I think some of it works great. The presence of Urizen is great. This Urizen claw as he's fighting Spawn down here, the bottom right side of the spread, looks fucking great. All the little bits that we're checking in with look good. I don't love the way his like floating eye there looks. I think that's not as successful as Medina probably wants it to be. I get that we're getting like the kid writhing and then like the kind of cut in on his eye, but it kind of is.
It looks like armor on Urizen rather than it looks like an eye.
And I think that's the implication, but it also doesn't quite flow as well as some versions of like, it isn't as abstract. It isn't abstract enough, nor is it representative enough.
Okay.
But overall, I like a lot of the spread. Love Urizen stomping the ground.
Yep.
It's all great. He says when Preston awoke, the whole world looked different to him somehow. He knew things no one else in town knew, secret things. He couldn't wait to tell his brothers. That was 5 weeks ago. Now
Oh,
they're back in class. Oh, go ahead.
one quick callback is that in their room they have a race car bed. Preston
Hell
has a
yeah.
race car bed that has Tremor on it,
Hell yeah.
which is cool.
I sleep in a race car.
And I think also like their lamp it says the curse.
That's probably true. Yes, it does.
And
They got a clown on the wall in there.
and a Spawn logo. And a freak.
They got a what's up. Hell yeah.
And there's a freak and
There's a corn poster.
Yeah. Anyway.
There's an Angela in there.
Yep.
Yep. A lot of little Easter eggs in there. That's fun.
Pretty fun. Anyway, sorry. Just didn't want to pass by that without.
No, that's good. I'm glad we went back to that.
Anyway, 5 weeks ago. That was 5 weeks ago. So 5 weeks is now we're back in the present. They're in school.
They're picking on Piggy Boy again in the middle of class, and they are mercilessly harassing him. The teacher asked him to apologize, and instead, Preston says, choke. She's choking. Or it's the twins. The twins look at each other and say, choke. She's choking. And sure enough, the teacher starts to choke, and she falls over, taken out of the school on an ambulance.
Yeah. And the piggy thing stuck out to me because I was like, oh, we're doing Lord of the Flies.
Oh, yeah, of course. But also that's something that motherfuckers will say to you.
That's true. Not to me. That was not my experience.
I'm glad.
So am I. But but yeah, motherfuckers will be saying that.
So yeah,
they kind of just are, they're gonna work on their Halloween costumes, blah blah blah.
Well, don't skip over that because
I hate
what happens.
This part when they go to work on their Halloween costumes.
Once again, I'm forced to give a vague trigger warning for animal violence.
Yeah,
they make their Halloween costumes out of live pigs who are no longer alive by the time the costumes are made.
Yeah, they basically make masks out of their head skin.
Yeah, their
it's
faces.
Rough.
Yeah, it's pretty rough and also terrifying. I mean, it's effectively horror movie-ish. This is very
This is the first issue where I think Medina's actually got to draw some fun shit. And
he's got to do a little actual horror stuff that isn't like a concentration camp.
Yeah. Or
people overdosing.
Yeah, exactly. Poor Angel Medina was just like, what do I have to draw this week?
Oh my God.
What?
I'm drawing what? The white ribbon you said? So yeah, now they're all trick-or-treating. I like the narration here. Halloween. It's hot, moist beneath the mask, warm to the touch, like a second skin. It smells of dead things. The voices tell Preston to be patient, but he is anxious, hungry. So they go out, the kid's bag rips, and they're all chasing the kid down, going, trick-or-treat, pig boy, trick-or-treat, pig boy, wearing the skin of these pigs on their faces.
And they're scary.
They are scary as shit.
Yeah. Inking's really good here too. I think there's lots of really good texture, and I think the colors kind of came around as well.
We're getting there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
We're starting to really get there. And this story reminds me a little bit of what is it, Pat Shaughnessy?
Yeah,
the Pat Shaughnessy story where the kid's getting
bullied.
are
really that's the other thing I think that I was kind of disappointed by. I just kind of felt like I've seen this before, and I was really happy to go back to the Town Called Malice because it's the greatest named town ever.
Yeah.
And it sounds cool. It sounds like an old Western or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know why we're kind of retreading.
Yeah. I mean, again, this story works for me in a little better than some of the other ones though. But yes, the poor pig boy gets kidnapped and tied up, and it's all part of Preston's plan, I guess, to bring back Urizen. And as he is taunting the pig boy, he starts the monologue that I did at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah.
He says, "Don't you know what I've become? I'm the void. I'm the night." And as he's saying all this, he's transforming into this wild boar monster with the tusk coming out of his face.
Yeah.
Kind of kicks ass. I love it. It looks great.
It's cool.
Spawn, he this double page spread of the creature lunging at Spawn where he's saying, I'm the eater of worlds, I'm the destroyer. I love it. It's a great take on the monster. Spawn punching the snoot and it like all crumpling.
I kept reading it in Brad Neely's voice though.
I am the eater of worlds.
Actually, like that's what that kid sounds like to me.
I am Al fucking Simmons. I am the hell Spawn. The only good piece of Harry Potter media, period.
Oh yeah, I didn't really think about that, but yeah, fuck Harry Potter.
Fuck Harry Potter. Up the wizard people. We love wizard people.
Yeah, we love wizard people. And so sorry to those new kids that got cast as the new Harry Potter kids. Sorry
Fuck
that you're...
them.
Yeah.
Fuck them.
Yeah.
Send me your checks. Send me your checks, kids, and we'll be even.
I like this fight scene.
I don't think dividends.
I don't think this fight scene's as quite as polished.
This is
as we're used to.
It is very abstract. The panels are very. We're getting into like that early 2000s look of comics now, where they're moving out of the 90s, but we're doing more wild panels that are kind of more geometric. You know who this really reminds me of is he drew Superman for a while. Ken
Lashley?
No. I'll think of it later. It doesn't matter. He was at Top Cow for a little while. It was during the sad years.
Ken Rockefort?
Ken Rockefort. Is he a bad dude or anything? I hope not.
Who knows anymore?
I hung out with him once. It was kind of cool. He's a nice guy. Hope he still is. You can never tell with people anymore. It's been like literally like 15 years, so you never know.
I remember hating his Red Hood and the Outlaws, so
yeah, I don't blame him so much for that though. But if you look at those panels, it's very similar to he's kind of building on that kind of a structure. I like this fight scene. I really love the colors in it. I actually like the kind of abstraction of Spawn's face. There's this one page where it's like the 4 panels flying around. That's kind of the one I was talking about with how the panel layouts are kind of odd. But I like how Spawn's face looks. Is definitely a different version of Spawn than we've seen. And I like that for Angel Medina. I like that we're seeing him do something that feels more his. And I really love the panel of Spawn punching through the boar monster's chest into the kid's chest and pulling out like the big like spore of like evil or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's cool.
He crushes it between his fingers. The hands at the bottom of this page with the like green energy coming up that almost looks like a spinal column. Fucking awesome. All of this looks great. Again, we look at this Spawn and it's very exaggerated. Like his torso is very exaggerated. It almost looks like he's sucking in like up under his ribs like a corpse. But I think it looks awesome. I think it's more interesting than any of the other sequence of pages we've seen Medina do so far. At least in these few issues, and I really have enjoyed that.
Quick interruption. Kenneth Rockefort was very much a comic skater, so fuck that guy.
Really?
Yeah.
Fuck, that sucks hard. Well, fuck him. I'm sorry to say it. I'm glad you looked it up, but that sucks.
Yeah.
That's disappointing. You know, we were talking the other day, a friend of mine and I, about Immortal Hulk and how Joe Bennett kind of fucked that up. But I will say, Al Ewing, one of the nicest guys in comics.
Yeah.
And that truly a genuinely good person, the exact opposite of Joe Bennett.
Fuck yeah. Love Al Ewing, love Sword, love X-Men Red.
Yep. We had sushi once. Anyway, he pulls this evil out of Preston. The twins are so shocked.
I love that panel. It's great. Their eyes.
Yeah, it's great. He heals Preston, and the scene of him healing is awesome. It's like the green energy pouring through him. And then I love it comes back to the poor, like he runs out, and then it goes back to the poor kid still tied up, and he's just like, help? And
I
so
like that he looks like a middle-aged baby.
I know I actually love that drawing. It has
Me
the
too.
Disney eyes, but I kind of love that one. So it resolves. The kid's name was Mikey. Pig Boy was Mikey, and I'm sorry we always called him Pig Boy up until this point, but I legitimately
We're
couldn't
just as
remember.
bad as his bullies.
Just as bad. And I've had my own lesson in compassion.
Yeah.
Mikey never told anyone what happened to him that Halloween night. No one pried too deeply. Malice has enough secrets to keep. Whatever it was agreed that Mikey Malloy was a very brave boy. That sounds like the name of a fucking Of Montreal song. And Daniel and Darren seem to have lost the ability or the will to speak, and the citizens of town consider this to be a vast improvement. Preston Miller fell victim to some strange illness and has not returned to school. He can't remember when he had a good night's sleep. Something dark haunts his dreams, something he can't give a name to, but deep in his blood he knows it will haunt him all his days. And it's Spawn just standing up on the hill looking into his room.
Spawn 9 feet tall.
Yeah, 30,000 feet tall. Like it's a 12-foot tall Spawn. It looks like Spawn wrapped his cape around a tree.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's cool. Like, I love that imagery. Here's my final thoughts. I'm just going to jump right into it because we gave a lot of analysis of all of this. But I'm just going to jump right into my final thoughts, unless you have a reason for me not to.
No, you go for it.
My final thoughts is I feel like this could have been an arc in Malice. I would have much rather seen those kids ramping up more, like their creepy powers that they express only once in the issue.
Mm-hmm.
I would have really enjoyed to get to know Preston a little more. I hope he comes back at some point because he seems like one of those characters that could come back as like the Revengeosaur or some shit, down the road.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed that last story, and when we did it again, read it again just now, I enjoyed it even more than I did the first time, probably because we had just analyzed those first two and they felt so, I don't want to say necessarily lacking, because the second one I thought had a lot of merit in its message, but they were not fun.
They're dour.
They were dour, and they were dour in a way that the craft of the work doesn't match the like atmosphere. I will say, while I say that, I will go ahead and immediately contradict myself and also say that I thought Angel Medina did a good job with the concentration camp scenes. They were horrifying and sad,
crazy
but
sentence
not.
To say, but yes, you're right.
But they were tastefully done.
Yeah,
and they were not done with shock value.
There's a respect in the work, absolutely,
right?
That I think that the subject matter needs. It is a little bit of whiplash, though, when 3 issues ago we're fighting a demon the size of a mountain, and then we're trying to like make a point about. I think that like you obviously put Nazis in things because they're the like you can always kill Nazis. That's what's
they were a little less present in our immediate lives at that time as well.
Yeah, but also like they're always. It's like how
no, you're right. They're the universal oppressor. You can do anything to a Nazi and
nobody's going to care.
It.
Nobody's going to be like, well, maybe you shouldn't. They're
Nazis
gonna go,
and pedophiles.
Yeah, exactly. And this book has done both, right? I do think that I liked, honestly, what the last issue makes me want is I want a book called A Town Called Malice.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I want a book that is exploring
that would be a cool place to do those little slice of life stories that are now unfolding in this place.
What is the evil of this place that is now like tied to evil because Urizen's hand still exists there? What is that like?
Well, that's why I felt like it could have been those 3 issues. It could have been all 3 issues. It could have spent that time.
Agreed. There. And I think so. I think that the failure of the first 2 issues, and I know we're going to see Thea again, and obviously Memon is doing stuff, and he's being pitted as like the antithesis of Spawn at this point, his new sort of nemesis. I think that the reason that people don't resonate as much with this next era of Spawn as much as they do with the first era of Spawn is that his main idea has kind of resolved in a lot of ways. There's been a lot of resolution and there hasn't been a new problem. The problem is still that he's not human, but also now he doesn't really care. Like he doesn't really care about Wanda that much. Wanda and Terry don't show up at all. And the fact that he kind of plays second fiddle to the goings on of a bunch of stuff that we're unsure how much we're supposed to care about it. Like, say what you will about the beginning of Spawn repeating itself a lot. The stakes are pretty clear. It's a pretty simple setup. Guy makes a deal with the devil, got lied to, wants to kind of regain his
Right. The
humanity.
motivations are obvious when you hear the premise.
Yeah.
The motivations now are less obvious and more amorphous. And I think that one thing that, as we're talking about this, I'm feeling is that it never commits hard enough one way or the other. We never get deep enough into Spawn is now trying to stay one step ahead of Mammon in this race for like the souls of people of Earth.
Right.
We never get deep enough into Spawn is now an agent of like redemption for evil people. And we never get deep enough into Spawn is still a fighter of supernatural monsters. It kind of tries to show all three of those angles, and it never goes deep enough into any of them to commit to any of them. And you kind of wish it would, because you'd get more of who Spawn is now. It's his name on the comic.
Right. And I think that as a reader is just kind of disappointing, because I think even with, I'll always relate him back to like Spider-Man or Batman, because you kind of have to, right? But when those characters kind of go through eras, they deal with like a big thing, and like another big thing is right around the corner in a way.
Yeah.
And sometimes they just restate their premise in a way that is a little bit impossible. I think often of Spider-Man, like no one dies, right?
Right.
J. Jonah Jameson's wife dies. Spider-Man decides, and this more recent in the Slott stuff, right? And he decides, like, no, this is not going to happen again. I'm going to make sure this doesn't happen again.
And then he immediately has to face a guy who's just a fucking aimless murderer.
Right. And like that puts him in a position where you're like, okay, like put up or shut up. Like, what are you going to do? Because you just said no one dies.
The themes are unfolding directly on the page before your eyes.
Right. Whereas here, we're burying the themes. We are showing them in a more abstract way. I do kind of appreciate it in terms of like, oh, that's like an interesting way to do a superhero comic, sort of. But this also doesn't feel like a superhero comic. And that's why if it was something like a longer arc specifically about Malice, where you're doing an X-Files thing, where you're doing like a Stephen King, what evil lurks, around the corner type thing, I think it would be really, really fun.
Yeah.
And you could have Spawn be more of a background character, because you're forefronting that the Town Called Malice is the character that we're following, and that these stories exist in this world.
Well, and
kind of like Erie, Indiana, or whatever those shows were.
If there was enough room on unfolding, if there was enough room in that story unfolding over multiple issues, you could easily show Spawn still being in the background, but also get more of a sense of who he is, what's going on. This is one of the first strings of comics of Spawn where we haven't gotten any of his internal monologue, any of like focus on him at all. Maybe a little bit in the final issue there, maybe, but it's just not. We're not in Spawn's head anymore, and I kind of want to be back there a little bit.
Yeah, because he usually tells me how I'm supposed to feel a little bit,
and what to think, and what to say and do.
Right,
and that's what I need. He's like the laugh. I need a laugh track. No, but it's that we, like you said, Spawn is a character that evolves, and we've watched him evolve, and I want to know what the next step of that is. I want to get deeper into that, and I'm willing to bet that some of the readers who write into these comics also have thoughts that echo that.
Oh, brother. We're going to do the back matter of 102 first.
Great.
Have I got a letter for you?
Oh, cool.
Dear Todd McFarlane, I want to make a quick disclaimer before I start this letter. I'm a fan. I like Spawn, all of its merchandising tie-ins. Your toys are incredible. You've gotten a lot of my paychecks. That new video game is fantastic. The movie was fun, escapist entertainment. And I'm the first one to grab the current issue off the rack. But as a writer and cartoonist, it sometimes pains me that Spawn isn't living up to its potential as an engaging and original story. If you'll bear with me, I'd like to throw out some constructive criticism. And we can go through, there's a few points here. We're going to stop to kind of talk about each one. Number one, first off, the 100th issue was, frankly, Seinfeld-esque in the letdown department. There's a serious lack of forethought in the comic. The rules aren't that thought out, and the writing has holes in it. For instance, if Spawn and Angela could just walk into hell and slice Malebolgia to pieces, why didn't they do it a long time ago? I understand there's a whole this was meant to be subplot going on, but it's still anticlimactic to see the story's main bad guy killed in a couple pages. Also, Urizen was already trapped again. The immediate threat to Earth is gone. Why risk life and limb to go after the leader of hell on some half-cocked macho revenge mission? It makes no sense. Your thoughts
I have a lot of thoughts on
on
that.
part
The
one?
main thought being, it's not like this was all of a sudden out of the blue and they could have done it at any time. If you
If
haven't
you read
been
the comic, they didn't
where
even know about
Spawn
the way that they could do that
for a
until
long time,
yeah.
and not only that,
And in fairness, Cagliostro is an asshole.
but Spawn had to keep leveling up through this whole thing. He couldn't do it before because he could barely control his powers. He's fought Malebolgia before. And lost. He couldn't
Yeah.
just walk in and do it.
He needed to
Literally
get powered
could
up by
not
the green
before
world.
that. Exactly.
So this
there are
man.
levels to this. You're not reading. You don't understand comics.
Number 2. I mentioned the rules before.
Oh, God.
What are they? Why can Angela, an angel, just walk into hell? You're free to write whatever story you want, but it sort of confuses me. If angels can be killed, where do they go when they die? Heaven? They're already from there. I think it would be more interesting if the celestial, and demon for that matter, characters were a bit more intangible. Instead of having Angela impaled in a cloud of blood and gore, maybe it would be more interesting to have her tortured in the bowels of hell for all eternity.
What the fuck, dude?
She deserved a martyr's fate. She's an angel. Angels aren't mortal. They aren't made out of blood and bone, or they shouldn't be anyway. I think issue 100 should have ended with Angela's brave sacrifice resulting in the Earth living a little bit longer or something. Your thoughts?
Here's what I'm going to say.
Is there a lore reason for that?
These are my yes, actually. These are my least favorite kind of responses to comics because of two things. One, it's always just here's what I do, and nobody fucking cares. Dude.
I mean, that's a little bit of what
nobody
we do
cares.
on this
Here's what I do.
podcast.
Well, and a little bit. There are times when we go back and we say like, "Oh, looking at all these story beats that we've now analyzed," you know. But we don't go and say, "I think Angela should have been tortured in hell for all eternity." Instead of, I think the other reason I don't like these is because it presupposes that no one is asking the same question. No one else is asking where do angels go when they die. That might never be. It assumes because it hasn't been addressed, it never could be.
Or it already wasn't thought of in the planning for the thing that did happen. Yeah.
Right. And it's not constructive criticism because you don't understand construction.
Oh, no, it is constructive because he said, I'd like to throw out some constructive criticism.
All right. I'm sorry. It's one of those things like no offense.
Number 3. Okay, what's with the whole Spawn isn't Al Simmons thing? Don't get me wrong. I get why it's important to the character and the story, but let's face it, Spawn's longing for the last bit of humanity is one of the few things that made the character interesting. The guy already has a zombie face, no pupils, or any facial characteristics that make us identify with him. His expressions range from pissed off to really pissed off. Now that he's Spawn and not Al Simmons / Spawn, he doesn't seem that tormented. He doesn't seem motivated to do anything other than play this Grim Reaper role. He's more the quiet narrator of the story rather than the main character. In short, Spawn isn't that interesting. Sorry, but it's true.
Well, I'll agree with at least part of what he said, which is Spawn has felt more like, again, the vibes character than anything else. I don't think it's necessarily bad. I think that there are ways that could be done better. I think that we have offered our own constructive criticism on how we feel the story is lacking, digging deeper into the character of Spawn. I don't know, man. I'm predisposed to dislike anything this guy says at this point.
I
get why comic writers sometimes are like, I don't want to read the fucking letters, dude.
Yeah. I do understand, and because I feel this way a little bit, Spawn is more compelling when he does have that human element. However, we're just going into an era of Spawn right now where that's not the main driving force behind the character. And I'm curious to see moving forward how Todd and Brian and the rest of the team are going to get us to care.
Right.
Because they can. They've gotten us to care before. So
that's the thing, is that I'm in for the ride.
Yeah.
And I hate when people are just like, I'm getting off the ride because of what the ride is.
Yeah.
I guess I don't hate that. If they could just say that, I'd be fine with it.
Fair. I could go on nitpicking, but I can sum it all up nicely. You're a smart guy, right? Sure you are. Your fans are smart, right? Challenge us. Don't leave loose ends. Think all this stuff out. The warfare of heaven and hell is a huge epic story. Treat it like that. Don't involve one single character in the plot that isn't vital to the mythology as a whole. I like him, but Curse is about as much use as boobs on a fish. Despite all this, I hope you still believe that I'm a fan. I really am. I like the comic a lot, and I would really miss my monthly Spawn fix if it were gone. And hey, if you want to sit down for a cup of coffee or beer sometime, we'll discuss this further. Give me a call.
Oh my God.
I know, you laugh, but think about it, man. You could be turning away the guy that could improve Spawn like no one else. But anyway, take care. Good luck. I look forward to 100 more issues. Sincerely, Clay Hens.
I hate what he just wrote. Think about it.
He's the most annoying guy at Comic-Con.
I could be the guy that can fix your comic.
In fairness, we've said that on this podcast, but Todd doesn't listen to the podcast. He's just appeared on it, so I think it's okay.
We have not said anything like that.
No, I'm kidding.
That sucks. I'm sorry. That's just so
Except for Spawn
annoying.
versus Krampus. I just still think that'd be a great idea.
Sure. Yeah, we could do that. The Curse, though, like, what do you want?
The Curse is great.
You want there to be more characters, but not
only characters that are relevant to the larger story.
To the specific.
Also, this guy's never read an X-Men comic, right?
I'm at a loss.
Todd's response.
Oh God, Todd's response better be, "I hate you."
It's actually really nice and measured.
What a surprise. Todd's a nice guy.
Clay, thanks for writing in with your concerns. I appreciate your candor and the way you package your criticisms of Spawn in a thoughtful and constructive manner. I do understand at some level your frustration with what may appear to be inconsistencies in Spawn. As I've said before, maybe there are quite a few loose ends hanging around that are irritating to some readers. Sometimes those little side stories, if you will, were meant to be nothing more than little side stories. Other times, perhaps those ends have been left dangling for too long. I will do my best to clear those questions up and still stay within the confines of the Spawn world I've created. This may not be the answer you're looking for, Clay, but I'm going to have to ask you to trust me. Though it may not always seem so, I do have a very firm grasp on where Spawn is going. If you stick in there, many of your questions will be answered. Spawn will always carry a bit of Al Simmons inside him. That said, the character has to evolve. I hope to guide him through his evolution in a way that is fair to both the fans and my creative vision. He can't pine for Wanda forever. Boobs on a fish? Very funny. Thank you again for the good wishes and the positive way you chose to address your concerns. I hope upcoming issues will make you happier.
It's nice that he's the good cop, because
that is a very nice response.
Especially compared to what I said, which is I hate you.
Clay Hens, if you're out there, we'd love to know what you felt about Spawn after this.
Don't.
In issue 103, we have this one. It says, Dear Todd, first, I'd like to thank you for the creation of Spawn. While I admit I'm probably not the biggest fan of Spawn, I try to collect all the back issues and current ones. I've been meaning to write for you for some time, but couldn't find any topics worth writing about. But after reading issue 100, I've gone and read the issues leading up to 100, and I've come across some things I'd like to ask you. What's going on here? Is this somebody who just like read issue 100 and then was like, maybe that was cool.
Maybe they went back and reread it.
Yeah. Number 1. In issue number 91, the little boy, Ronnie, becomes possessed by a spirit and talks to Spawn. Later, when his mom comes back for him, he's staring at a Creech 2 poster. Are there any current plans to bring back the Creech?
Yeah.
Number 2. Before issue number 100 came out, you revealed that a female character was going to die and never come back. You believe if a character is going to die, they should stay dead. I also believe this, but in issue 80, you brought back Billy Kincaid. Isn't that kind of going against your word? Number 3. After issue 100, you said to expect appearances by the Curse, the Freak, and Jason Wynn. Isn't an appearance by the Freak another example of a reoccurring character who had been killed off? Number 4. Do you have any plans to bring back the Redeemer? Number 5. It is extremely difficult to find back issues, especially at low prices. Why don't you sell back issues on Spawn.com? Thank you for your time, Todd. I'll continue to read Spawn as long as you continue to publish it. Ronnie Gomez, Riverdale, Utah. Age
Stay out of Riverdale.
14. No, I'm kidding. It doesn't say age anything.
I don't have much response to that other than just like, oh, fucking, I don't care. A lot of it is like, oh,
yeah, it's nothing. But he says the Creech, Greg's working on it. That's why he isn't penciling Spawn, but I hope to help Greg with the inking on the Creech. Although it doesn't sound like I'm sidestepping I hope this doesn't sound like I'm sidestepping the issue. I think there's a difference between what went down in 100 and with Billy Kincaid. The thing I find problematic is when a big deal is made about a major character dying and hyping it up for a sales technique, then coming back 3 months later and negating the fact. I'm here to say
Right.
that both the characters who died in 100 will remain dead and will not come back. The other part of that equation is when people are resurrected, they go from being alive to getting killed and coming back alive. They go from flesh to flesh. Billy Kincaid isn't someone I consider to be a major character, and he's not really alive if you go back and read those stories. He's a ghost, and it may be splitting hairs, but he's a ghost and must possess people in order to have any sort of powers. Billy Kincaid, for all intents and purposes, is dead and isn't back. The characters I'm talking about are whole again and real human beings and not spirits. Some of the characters will be coming back. The Freak wasn't really killed the first time. He went into limbo via Spawn's powers, so that's why I brought him back. Redeemer will probably make an appearance in the future. we have to make
Poor
sure we bring
Todd
him in
having
at a
just be like,
time that makes
He's gonna
sense.
fucking come back. We're gonna do the characters.
And I do believe that a lot of the back issues have gone up in price. One of the easiest ways to get back issues is by the trade. That usually contain 4 to 6 issues of the series. We've been putting more of them out in numerical order. Take a look at your bookstore, comic book shop to see if they have those. Thanks for reading and writing.
Thanks.
And then in 104, what's interesting is there's not there's less room for the letters columns. I do think that, the page count on these is a little lower than the older issues.
Right.
And that is probably it's getting more expensive, but we don't want to.
So they're taking out some of the
some of the ads are out. Yeah. All right. Here's one from good old Canada. Hi, Todd. First, congratulations on your 100th issue. It was a roller coaster ride. I've been a fan since the first issue, but I started buying them monthly at 73. I like the urban legend feel in your comic. Actually, I like that. The urban legend thing is what I think we would want from a book called The Town Called Malice, right?
Right.
That's kind of what we're looking at. Anyway, I live in Canada. For some reason, Spawn comes out a bit later than in the United States. Anyway, I have some questions. 1, I started collecting Spawn at 73, so I never got to see Wolfram.
Oh, no. What the fuck? What did you just say? I was yawning when Pierce said that, and it threw me for a loop. The fuck did you just say?
I said...
So I never got to see Wolfram?
Yeah, your favorite character.
Lucky you.
Wolfram. I checked the net, and I can't find any pictures or information on him. My question is, will we get to see him again?
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, in issue 75, Bootsy said, there will come a child, Al. Look to the child. Will you have a future issue on that statement? Number 3, in issue 94, Wanda got pregnant. There was a shadow in the back. Everyone assumes it's Spawn, but I'm not sure. I don't want you to give away any plot, but is this something we'll see later?
These are things that are answered in the comics.
Number 4, I know the meter is useless now that Spawn controls his power. It doesn't even go down. It'd be great to see that again.
Okay.
Number 5, Ab and Zab are really cool. Have you ever thought about a miniseries? I agree with that. Ab and Zab should get a miniseries.
Sure.
Ab and Zab across America.
Yeah, okay.
Honestly, Ab and Zab in a Clerks thing where also...
Ab and Zab do America.
Ab and Zab
basically
strikes again, and you just do Jay and Silent Bob would be fun.
It's technically Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter.
I know, but just listen, Berserker is a book that Keanu Reeves is vaguely involved with.
They should...
Alex Winter's got nothing going on.
Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter should play Jay and Silent Bob, but they should play Jason Mewes and Kevin Smith in a movie about...
We've gone too far. Number 6, when Tiffany was killed by Spawn, Cog told him she wasn't dead because there's only one way to kill an angel. I know that Angela won't come back. What makes the Battle of Malebolgia special to say that Angela is really dead? Thank you for bringing Spawn to life, and thanks to Greg for all his great work. Simon Fleury. That's a cool name.
Maybe you've heard of lawsuits.
Quebec, Canada.
Maybe, Simon, you've heard that there are things called lawsuits.
Simon, it's always nice to hear from one of my fellow Canadians. I know you guys have been big supporters of a lot of things I've done over the years. I'm glad you've been hanging around all this time. Let's go to your questions. 1, we have a lot of characters that come and go within the confines of the book, but these characters not necessarily put there so we can keep bringing them back every 10 to 20 issues. Some of the key characters are put in situations so the reader can see them again. It's the reason you see Dr. Octopus in Spider-Man titles, the Joker in Batman, Lex Luthor in Superman. We're looking at a new direction for Spawn and seeing what characters we can pull from the pages of previous issues will allow for us to give a little bit more juice to Spawn's story. Whether that will include Wolfram or not is hard to say.
It's pretty hard to say.
That's a really long way of saying no. If you read the events of the last couple issues, you'll see not only one child, but two. The twins were born to Wanda, and only time will tell how that will play out. I have a good idea in my head, as does Brian. We've got two children, but they don't equate to the same thing. Number 3, there's obviously a connection between Spawn and Wanda. The fact that there are two children in this world because of what amounts to a murky relationship. Sooner or later, when the children get older, we'll deal with what that means. I don't want to be vague, but I have to be. The answer to your question will come, but it will take some time. Please try and hang in there. Number 4, the meter has been going down and it isn't useless. We just haven't been putting it on paper. The meter goes down every time Spawn uses his internal powers, his green goo, if you will, which is why most of the time Spawn uses his own physical attributes or the living tissue of his costume. If you take a look at all the issues, very rarely do we get him to exploit his limited power. Wow, that is really getting
That's
around.
not true at all. They do it all the time. He just did a shitload of it.
It's getting around some stuff.
He brought a little boy back to life.
Todd, come back on the show because we're
we have immediate questions that you need to account for, and you're gonna love it. Just like you did 20 years ago when you had to answer them to fucking Ronnie Kuklinstein or whatever the fuck.
We are number 5. We're always thinking about miniseries, annuals, and one shots, and have a couple on the back burner that will be coming up. None of them include Aberzab, however. We'll probably stick with more high-profile characters. And the difference between Tiffany and Angela is the battle with Tiffany took place on Earth and the rules changed. In my mind, if an angel falls in hell, then that's the end of the game. There is no time and space to recover. The same would be true if a demon was struck down in heaven. Not only would they be mortally wounded, but they would be on territory that puts them in the weakest possible position. Angela dying in hell, as far as I'm concerned, means she's finished forever. And that's what we got.
Yep. And that's what happened.
So, we already talked final thoughts. These were 3 issues that I didn't think we were going to talk about for
90 minutes.
90 minutes
we always
or so.
do.
But we always do. We always find a
do
way.
it.
I will say one thing about the cover of 104 is that it's supposed to look like Cygor, right?
Huh. I guess. Or Overkill? I don't know.
Oh, that's what I meant. But yeah. Either one, honestly. But it isn't. It's neither of them, and it doesn't even really look like Pigman.
Nope. One little thing, I want to give a shout out to that guy who gave us a very nice Instagram comment and said we're the best podcast ever. I can't remember his name, but I'm sure you'll find out.
Oh, now I have to look for that, but
it's on Insta. I know which post it was on. It was on the 100th episode.
Oh.
You responded to it.
I know, but put me on the spot.
Found it. Rainer Noville says, best podcast ever.
Oh.
Fire.
Thanks, Rainer.
We said thanks for listening, and I say that again. And if one person thinks that, that makes my day completely. And that's why I wanted to bring it up and just give you a nice shout out. Because, as Pierce is always saying, if you leave us reviews or comments, as we hope you do, then we will respond to you. We'll get back to you on air and let you know how much we adore your kind words. And if you say mean, nasty things, we will say, please don't. Also, feel free to, send us messages and chat. We're always chatting with people in the DMs. We got people sliding into the DMs. If you got something to say, hit us up. Yeah. I've been having some interesting conversations about the use of AI in art, and I still want to say, fuck that shit. Fuck that shit. You know what? That's a great segue right into my recommendation. Great. Let's get to recommendations, George. My recommendation for this week is that you go buy some comics from my friends at Bustillo Publishing. That is Bustillo Publishing. They're as independent as it gets. It's my friend Rodney and his pals. I inked a comic for them once years ago. He makes these comics by hand. He draws them, inks them. He has friends who color them. He has artists that he hires to work with him and writers that he hires to work with him. He self-publishes these comics and he sells them on his own. And it would really make me feel good if you could go and check out anything that you want. There's a few issues up there now on bustiopublishing.com, I think. There's a store link and everything. Go check it out. I can't recommend enough how much I enjoy digging into comics that are a labor of love, that are a labor of real passion and real human work made by human hands. It is the antidote to the bullshit that we are seeing right now. It's something that we need more of in the industry. And like I said, Rodney's been doing it forever. He's been doing this for so long, and he is as independent as it gets. I just, for whoever is out there that wants some serious indie comics that are really worth checking out and giving a couple bucks to, please go to Bustillo Publishing. That's Bustillo Publishing. And I think they're on all social media. I just want to give my most emphatic shout out to them.
Hell yeah. And we'll have a link to that in the description for the show as well. So it should be pretty easy to find. I have 2 recommendations. One is a friend of the pod, Chris Gethard, has nonprofit called Laughing Together, raising money to provide like workshops. Chris has always been an advocate for mental health, and this is a not-for-profit that is using comedy to promote mental health. And Chris, a great guy, had him on our old show. It's really cool.
I love that.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. There are like workshops and things like that. There's student focus workshops, as well as professional development workshops for adults who are looking to engage with kids in ways that they're not just on their phone all the time. And it's all about adaptability. They provide a structured curriculum that you can use in school systems. So if you're a teacher or anything like that, you can reach out to them and find ways to introduce kids to like comedy and improv. And those skills are so transferable to so many things.
Oh my gosh, you have no idea how much they have helped my ability to mask in public. What I really want to say to that is I think that's fucking awesome, because especially when you're a kid, mental illness can be incredibly isolating. It can make you feel different from other people. Even having a different neurology, which, is different from having a mental illness, but anything like that can make you feel so isolated and disconnected from people, makes you feel like you're experiencing things other people don't experience. And being able to connect through humor, I think that's such a great idea, because that is the best way to break that ice and bridge that gap and take away the power of mental illness to isolate us.
Absolutely. And my second recommendation is a friend of mine just got announced, about a week before this when we're recording. I'm going to recommend the DC Go app, which is the free DC webcomic app. And they just announced a whole slew of new titles. And a buddy of mine, Bradley Clayton, is working on Aquaman, Yo-Ho, Hold On to Your Hook, by writer Josh Trujillo, who did Blue Beetle, with artists Nikki Lalapi, Andrew Dreon, and Bradley. Jackson Hyde is a pirate, a warrior, and a hero, but on the deep sea, he's known only as Aquaman. It's a madcap oceanic adventure as Jackson, Hawaii, and Dolphin search for the hook of the legendary King Arthur. Glory awaits this motley crew if they can just survive the reimagined heroes and villains they meet along the way.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, I'm two for two.
Free comics on an app, do it.
Yeah, and I'm 2 for 2 on former artists that I've worked with, working for DC now. So,
hell yeah!
Shout out also to Yasmin Flores and her work. That's pretty much it, George.
Yeah.
For Todd so loved the world,
he gave his only begotten spawn.
Thanks for listening. See you later, Hellspawn. Spawnography is recorded in Athens, Georgia, and Queens, New York. It's produced by me, Pierce Lyden. Our theme music and logo were composed by George Marston. Episodes come out every Monday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. If you like the show, please rate, review, subscribe. You can find us on social media at Spawnography or at SpawnographyPod. If you'd like to reach out to us directly, you can do so at spawnographypod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and until next time, see you later, Hellspawn.